Welcome to the Macat Multimedia Series, a Macat analysis of Elizabeth Anscombe's Modern Moral Philosophy. Where do society's moral obligations come from? The philosopher Elizabeth Anscombe claimed that all modern British moral philosophers shared the same approach to morality. She called this morality consequentialism. The two main strands of this morality being utilitarianism. We morally ought to do whatever brings the greatest happiness to the greatest number of people. And deontology, the Kantian view that we morally ought to do whatever we could simultaneously will to be a universal law. In her 1958 paper, Modern Moral Philosophy, Anscombe argued that moral obligation only made sense in the context of divine authority, an authority that had been lost during the Church Reformation. This, if you like, traditional moral obligation of what we ought to do was an obligation to God, and in her view, was outdated in the modern world. Anscombe believed that the concept should be dropped and replaced with ethics that concentrate on virtues and the philosophy of psychology. So, what about some food for thought? An example of Anscombe's viewpoint in action. The chefs at an Italian restaurant follow an age-old recipe for bolognese sauce, written by the very chef who invented it. But the recipe is lost. The chefs must come up with a new one. So, how do they decide? What are they morally obliged to do? Are they even obliged to do anything? The first chef is a utilitarian and thinks they ought to make the sauce according to the recipe that would please most people. The second, a deontologist, thinks that they ought to make the sauce according to a recipe that includes minced beef and tomatoes, as this is the correct way to make a signature bolognese sauce. The ingredients should not be changed. But a third chef disagrees with both of these suggestions and thinks it presents an excellent opportunity to start afresh. The original recipe was lost, so the first two chefs should not feel obligated to any recipe or authority when deciding on a new sauce. She suggests they look to culinary and dietary science and carry out research into satisfaction and taste, to understand human nature and find out what kind of food is conducive to health and happiness. Then they will make a really good bolognese sauce, according to what they have learned. The third chef represents Anscombe, who believed that the best way is to use our understanding of what makes people healthy and happy, and to follow that instead. Anscombe's philosophical ideas had a lasting effect on contemporary virtue ethics. A more detailed examination of her ideas can be found in the Macat analysis.